This intro is being shot on my S5 with the lens in question at a ridiculous 600mm f6.3. Yes, a very unrealistic situation for this kind of video, but as you know, we like to get the tests on the go immediately. So here we are. Next, we're going to go in the studio, take a look at it up close. There's a few features I think are worth taking a look at, and then we're going to get the random unedited samples on the go. I think I'm going to try and be a tourist with it, which sounds ridiculous, but you know, an ultra telephoto, yeah, it's got to be a bit of fun, although it is quite weighty. Anyway, after all my waffle, it'll be down to you to let us know what you think of the lens in the comments below. So yeah, let's crack on. The box is far too large to put all in the frame, but I wanted to show you what you get, because so you're spending your money. We've got a bag strap for what you can already tell is going to be a bag. You got some tools, the usual paperwork, pretty cool, and this rather special bag. I do love how Sigma give you bags, and decent bags too. I mean, look at this. It's got grab points with Velcro. It's got the strap at the back. And what was the other strap for now? Oh, that was for with the actual lens itself. So you've got a decent strap there, and then this padding. Everything is just always top quality from my experience with this company. When it comes to the packaging, you cannot fault it. Now, we do have another piece of protection right here before we can get into the main event. Now, obviously, there's a lot to talk about with this one. Let's take this lens hood off firstly. That's just got a nice little adjustment point there. Look at that absolute beast. Now, of course, we've got a focal length of 150 to 600. Does that fit in the frame? Yes, just about. Now, as far as the zoom goes, we've got this little switch here. That switch will lock it, and it will lock it at each of the numbered points. You'll see there's also a T point there, which allows you to zoom that way, but there's also an S, which means you can pull and push. Now, obviously, if you're holding it down at some point in your travels, walking around, that can slip, and that's where the lock comes in handy. Even the T mode comes in handy. Obviously, the S is the quickest, but T is perfectly fine, especially if you don't want it to be falling on you as you go away. Now, you'll see these buttons here. Now, if you've got the Sigma dock, you can customize these buttons. I believe it's with a couple of different programs. 2 programs, yep. So there we go, we've got the Sport logo there. Over here, you'll see we've got a focus switch, AF to MF, which is nice. We've got a full focus into 10 meters to infinity, and then less than 10 meters. Now at 150 mil, we've got a minimum focusing of 58 centimeters, which is brilliant. At 600, that's 280 centimeters. Now, this focus limiter switch is very important on a lens like this. At a focusing distance of 180, just by way of example, we've got a maximum magnification ratio of 1 to 2.9. Now, if we just lock up again and flick over here, we've got a huge 95mm filter thread. The lens is rated as dust and splash resistant, weighs 2.1 kilos. I've weighed it myself just for the crack. We've got 3 AFL buttons. There's the loop points for that strap on the tripod mount, which can be adjusted there, and you've got a little marking to help you with that. We've got 2 modes of OS, optical stabilizer, via this switch. Mode 2 for horizontal and vertical, and mode 1 for panning only. So, you know, it only limits the vertical movements and lets you move horizontally for panning. So that's pretty cool too. There's a lot going on with this lens. It's a very, very hefty bit of kit. So why on earth did I take it to Stratford upon Avon to be a tourist? Let's check it out. The build and handling is as class as I'd hoped for. It's well built, ready to handle a decent workload, and with a design that frankly does the job with no fuss. For example, you've got that tripod collar. You can't remove, but you can adjust it. And for me, the fact that it's Arca Swiss compatible is just way more practical. The switches on this thing aren't easy to knock out of place. The zoom torque one is a little bit tough to mess with, but you won't really need to once you've decided which option you want to go through, whether you need it locked or sort of the standard style where you can just operate it that way and it will stay more or less in place, or you can have a push-pull style at the S point where you can then just move quickly through the zoom range doing it that way. Of course, there's no lock at that point, but yeah, do like that option, and I believe it stands for lock, tight and smooth. Now, while this is a big heavy bit of kit, it's well designed to use out and about, and the hood, protector, bag, straps and so on make this a very tidy package. Also, you can use the 1.4 times and 2 times teleconverters with this, but I don't have them to hand to try out. I also don't have the Sigma dock to try out the custom modes, but it's there if you need it. I found the autofocus to be generally very good with my S5, and I know it's not fashionable to say that, but I'm an old school photographer who grew up with film cameras, all manual, so all this tech is extra, and the S5 works really well with this lens. But let us know if you've used this in more demanding wildlife and sports situations and how you've gotten on with it, because of course that's what it's really designed for. Now, it's worth noting that the stabilisation works really well in combination with the IBIS of my S5. At these sort of focal lengths, a heavy lens like this must have OS for me to have any chance with it, so thumbs up for the performance of the lens itself on that front. Now, obviously most of my test subjects were relatively static or quite slow, but you know, some of these tourists move around quite quickly these days. Now, I want to take this to a motorsport event or go back to the RSPB site and shoot some birds from the den there. Now I'm confident with this lens as far as its capabilities. It's definitely on my to-do list.
at 600mm, I really enjoy the results, but shooting 150 and close up is also very satisfying, which is a massive selling point for this lens. Now, it's not as sharp at 600, but it's still perfectly acceptable. At 150, you'll notice the corners aren't amazing, but that didn't bother me either. The focal plane on this one is pretty flat too, which is very nice. Now, flare is pretty well controlled, and I haven't noticed much problems with chromatic aberration, although I believe some of you have, so let us know how your lens and your experience fares on that front. Now, there is some pincushion distortion present, but for the most part, nothing that you'll notice or even care about. Bokeh finally is actually really nice. Of course, the focal length helps a lot here, but Sigma have done a great job making this lens actually produce very appealing images, even at f6.3. At around £1,119 new, or around £1,000 second hand, is it worth going without heating in my house for a week or two? Well, compared to a similar setup on DSLR, it comes in smaller and cheaper as a mirrorless option and works just as well for the most part. I think it's a cracking lens, even if I'm not into slower variable aperture zooms. I do love the range and the overall build, the handling and all the kit you get for the money. This is a beast of a lens, but a very decent buy.